And, you know, but he said, I've thought about this a lot. There is no possible way that we can deliver this machine without Gurley. And so, you know, I don't see any reason for me to come to the company. And I thought, oh, that's a big help, you know. So he just stayed at BBN. So it was just me. And I have to tell you what I had to do is so bizarre. Okay, oh, I need there's a kind of amplifier that is basically measures the difference between two things. You would know about such things, Bob. But okay, I got the RCA book, the little red book. I started reading, you know, how you design circuits. And so I started designing these circuits. And I tried to find someone who knew something about how to, the A to D. I found some guys who knew something about A to Ds on the outside. To make a long story short, I just scrambled around, did one thing after another, and made it all work, and we built the machine and delivered it on time. But I'll just say one last thing that happened that was sort of bizarre. This machine was a very weird-looking machine. You could change the transport to be 8mm, 16, or 35. And we delivered it, I think, with all three transports. And it was like a piano. You opened it up like a piano, and the CRT was, you know, I think the tube was horizontal. The faceplate was, it was a large tube, not the small one, and not as precise, but it was, I think it was horizontal is what I remember. And so the whole thing was, I can't remember how it was organized physically, but what I remember is that this machine had legs like a piano, and it was a big heavy machine. And so we're putting it together, and it's all done, and we're going to ship it out, and then there's a truck, and it's going to take it, and it's going to arrive just in time, and so on and so forth. And I'm standing next to the machine, and I see it's starting to fall over. One of the legs hadn't been attached right, and this thing we'd worked on for almost a year was about to fall and destroy itself. And I was standing right next to it. I grabbed it. And this thing weighed, I don't know, 500 pounds or something. And so the part I was holding was, you know, it had two legs, and I was holding for one leg. And finally, when you know, someone else came quickly and we got it. But I felt something go rip in my gut. Turned out I had ripped the muscle right here, and so I had a big hernia. But it got to its destination. It worked fine, and that was the PFR1, and we were off and running. And that was that episode was pretty horrific in various ways, but we made it.
That was the first product delivery for III?
First product that III delivered to someone, yeah. It was first sort of professional equipment, you know, that we built. And it was a kind of giant scramble to get it. We, for a lot of the time, you know, I just lived there at the company. Would come home on weekends. And yeah.
Just want to make sure it doesn't escape the acronym PFR.
Programmable film reader. Yeah, programmable film reader. So it was all, and later on I had to go down to the Army base there, and in New Mexico, Alamogordo, and you know, Stuart Nelson came on one of those trips. We had to go down, you know, software updates and make revisions and so on, meet the people. And
wow, that's quite a amazing beginning to
yeah.
a company that had such major historical impact.
Yeah. It was quite a thing because, you know, and that's why, you know, when we bought the DDP-24, and I met Bob, I really wanted Bob to come into the company because you know, I felt I was very lucky that I got that thing done. I did a bunch of things and I just solved the problems that I could and so on, but I was not competent like someone like Bob or Gurley. I could do it, but I was doing it by, you know, it's sort of like if you were in an airliner and you were the only one and the pilot and co-pilot died, you would sit down and work the controls and you might make it. But, you know, it's nice if you go up again, you might as well have a real pilot. And so when I met Bob, I thought, okay, you know, he's a guy who can, you know, he's like, Bob was very different than Gurley. Gurley was, you know, had different talents, but Bob was so super competent, you know, and he could make things work. So that was a wonderful thing.
Seems like that whole experience gave you that much more respect for that kind of expertise and that you wanted someone
Well,
like Bob.
yeah. And I had, you know, I've been very lucky in chance circumstance, you know. So one of my best friends was John Koch, who was IBM's, you know, most valuable computer designer. And he was a phenomenal designer. He was the master of complexity. And he invented RISC architecture, which is very, you know, basically, it caused a revolution in computer architecture, okay? And, you know, the way he invented RISC architecture is one day he said, I want to visit your company. So he came up to the mill in Maynard. And, you know, there's the PDP-1 there, which he'd never seen. You know, this is a guy who designed insanely complex for supercomputers, you know, and just, you'll like this. He designed a divide circuit, okay, for one of IBM's supercomputers, okay? It did an estimated, an 8-bit trial divisor, okay? But it couldn't do an 8-bit trial divisor and get the right trial. You normally do a 1-bit trial divisor in a divide circuit and you do 1 bit at a time. He wanted to do 8 bits at a time, okay? And so what it did was it multiplied the thing by the 8-bit number, which, and then you're going to subtract that, you know how a divide circuit works, Bob. You normally do it 1 bit at a time. He did it with 8 bits, but he knew he couldn't estimate it right, so it would be off by 3, 4, 5, or something like that in this number that ranged up to 256. But the same circuit that estimated the 8-bit trial divisor could estimate exactly what the correction was to correct that error. So in 2 clock times, he got the whole 8-bit.